Today, I have a list of 3 things that I have found really held me back from improving as a dancer, and I think there's a good chance that they're holding you back as well. So today we're gonna kind of break down what those things are, and we're also gonna talk about some tangible steps that we can take to sort of combat them. Let's just hop into it. As dancers, it's super easy to fall into habits or thought patterns that kind of hold us back from being able to perform like we want to or like we know we're able to. Just little things that, if gone unchecked, can create bigger problems for you later on. And I can say that from experience because I have recognized this deeply within myself. So I want to make this video and kind of talk about some of the things that I've learned over the years and hopefully help you guys to not make the same mistakes that I did and that I sometimes still currently continue to make. Now, if you're wondering why I picked these 3 things, it is 1, because I've personally dealt with all 3 of these things. 2, I've talked with many of my dance friends that have experienced problems similar to this. And 3, I actively hear people who are further along in their dance journey than I am discussing these topics and kind of providing warnings for the younger generation. And so if nothing else, maybe you can utilize this video as just sort of a self-analysis to kind of see where you're at and whether or not you think that these problems might be something that you need to deal with within yourself. Everything that I'm saying in this video is meant to work as a tool for you and as encouragement. It's never meant to be taken as an accusation. So let's just hop into these 3 things. The first of the 3 has a little bit more to do with your actual dancing, and that is you understand the basics, but you don't explore them for yourself. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that definitely hits home. And let me break down what I mean by that a little bit more. We've talked about this concept on the channel quite often, especially when it comes to hip hop. It's one thing to know of and to understand what the basics of the dance are, and this applies to any dance style that you practice. It's one thing to watch somebody break down a specific move or groove or elements of hip-hop dance, understand and internalize it, and to then think, okay, cool, I've got that one down. Maybe you even try it once or twice, you learn how to do it, and then you move on with your life. On the channel before, I have made the analogy equating dance to a language. And just as you need to understand the basics, like the alphabet, before you're able to ever put together words so that you can put together phrases and sentences with any given language, the same principle applies with dance. There are pre-established methods and practices within any dance style that are designed to give your dance its form. And just like it's silly to assume that if you were to read through the alphabet of any given language one time, you would then be able to write an entire book or understand even how to put together 2 letters within that language. Think about when you were learning to read and the process that took. Think about how you began with simply what each letter was called. Then you learned all the different sounds that one letter could make. Then you learned how 2 of those letters sounded when you put them next to each other. Then you learned how 3 of those letters sounded when you put them next to each other. Then 4, then 5, then you put multiple of those words next to each other. Then you put multiple of those clusters of words together. And then you put multiple of those groups of words together until eventually you were able to understand and communicate with any given sound, whatever, within that language. And the same can be or should be true with dance. I think sometimes what happens with dance is we try to go in backwards. Or I guess you could say we try to dive off the deep end without knowing how to swim. And although that is one way to learn, and there are certain situations where that is simply going to be the case, when it comes to things that we can control, like our personal practice or our personal training regimen, I think that we are doing a disservice to ourselves when we do not rely more so on the pre-established ideas and concepts and the foundational technique that has already been created, and we just assume that we either don't need that or we put the unnecessary pressure on ourselves to work without those ideas, which I think is more so what I struggled with. In past years, it hasn't necessarily been that I was lazy. I spent hours and hours choreographing and practicing my dance and doing research on dance history, but I think where I was lacking most was the actual execution of the principles that I was learning how to actually take those foundational ideas, incorporate them into a training regimen for myself, and thus better incorporate them into the way that I dance. I understood them. I understood that bounce, rock, and groove are the foundational concepts within hip-hop. I understood various aspects of the history, particularly pertaining to breaking, and I had a general idea of what everything looked like, but I think what I actually lacked was the actual integration, the actual practice. Not because I wasn't trying to, but I think, as silly as it sounds, I partially felt like, oh, if I do that, I'm just like everybody else, and I'm just gonna look like everybody else if I do those same moves and practice in the same way that everybody else is practicing, which couldn't be further from the truth and is so silly. Yes, in one sense, we are doing things that everybody else is doing. Just like in every ballet class, we all do the same foundational exercises. We all do our pliés, we all do our tendus, we all do our battements. But there's a reason that we do those things. It's because later, when we're doing more complicated and abstract things, and when we're dancing in a way that is more unique to who we are, we have a foundation that we've built upon that will allow us to explore those more complicated concepts in an efficient and constructive way. A phrase that kind of comes to mind when I think about this idea is, you can't climb to the top of the mountain if you don't start at the bottom. And that might be kind of silly, but I think it applies in the sense of being willing to take the journey that you need to take to get to where you want to go. And the silly thing about it is that technique and that foundation that's already laid out for you gives you a path that you can follow. And I think that's partially why having a personal training regimen that incorporates foundational concepts and ideas is so valuable. Not only are you building discipline within yourself, but you also have tangible steps and material that you can already work with. You don't have to create anything. You just have to practice the ideas that have already been created for you and further acquaint yourself with them. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're simply taking the time that it takes to learn how to speak a new language. And as we learn what each letter sounds like, each foundational position and how different movements string together, the way that different words sound and how to put together a sentence, will ultimately come to a place of being able to communicate more clearly. And yes, we were talking about dance in that moment. Look at the basics. Look at the things that everybody is already telling you to do every time you step into a class for any given genre or style, if it's a good class in that genre or style, that is. Look at the concepts that repeat over and over and over again. There's a reason why those are repeated to you so often. It's because those are the things that are going to get you where you want to go. Those are the things that are going to get you from point A to point B. Those are the things that are going to establish your foundation that will then allow you to cultivate your own unique style and iteration of the dance. You can see in the people that are super comfortable and super established in their style, there's a similar undertone to everything that everyone is doing, ergo the basic structure that makes the dance what it is. But on top of that, the individuality of each person shines through. And while it may take time for you to find your own unique style and iteration of your dance, a great place to begin is the same place that anybody that you might admire for their style began, right at the basics. And so in the spirit of not overcomplicating the solution to this problem, another way that we can combat this is to simply just establish a normal routine of training these ideas and actively working to incorporate the foundational concepts of any dance style that you might be doing into the way that you move and into your everyday practice. I think I'm gonna have to take a seat. My Achilles are killing me. So that was the first of the three. And then the second thing that we're gonna talk about today that is potentially holding you back from improving as a dancer is you are always trying to be somebody else. Let's break that down a little bit. There's a difference between being inspired by somebody and trying to assume their identity. We talked a little bit about this in our videos on style and developing your own style. And this is, again, an issue that really hits home for me. Sometimes when I'm inspired by somebody, it's easy for me to fall into a mode of thinking they're doing it right, I should just do it exactly like they're doing it. And while I think it is good, and I still encourage you to study the people that inspire you and that you want to dance like and emulate, there's a difference between studying for the sake of being inspired and studying for the sake of becoming somebody who you're not and forgetting about who you are and who you were made to be. I've had to combat this a lot within myself even recently. In the past year, I've moved across the country to a new place where I'm surrounded by unimaginable talent. People that inspire me more than anybody else has inspired me in my entire life. And within that whole process, it's been very easy for me to look at those people. I feel that I've also sort of trapped myself into feeling like, oh, they've already figured it out. Why don't I just do it exactly like they do it? And this might sound a little bit like what we were just talking about, but it's slightly different. In the first issue, we talked about that foundational concept of hip hop, of taking something that's already been created and turning it into something new. In situations like this, I think it's very easy for us to, myself included, take something that already exists and try to then reproduce that thing, which when it comes to your own personal dance style, your own personal journey as a dancer, I have found that to be super unhealthy and super unproductive. You can learn so much just from watching people that inspire you, but I think we sort of cut our legs out from under ourselves, or we sort of miss the opportunity to then turn that inspiration into something great for ourselves when we fall into the mindset of, oh, I just need to do it like them, or, oh, wow, look at how they're doing it. Look at where they are. I should be at that point. Everything that I have to offer isn't worth anything. I think that that's a very natural thought pattern to fall into, and so we're going to talk about some ways to combat that. I think an important concept to understand when we're confronted with ideas like this is you can only be you and you can't be them as good as they can. And also inversely, they can't be you and they can't be you as good as you can. Now that might sound a little bit cliche or maybe even a little bit hokey, but I find this to be more and more true as I continue within my journey as a dancer. We all have different gifts within us that we've been given that make us great or that make us unique. And I think it's far more valuable and far more important to focus on the things that make you as an individual great rather than focusing on trying to replicate the things that make somebody else great. And this isn't the same thing as being inspired by somebody's work ethic or somebody's drive or even the specific way that people might do certain things. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about looking at somebody, seeing the value and what they have to offer, and then in turn negating or diminishing the value that you have as an individual and what you have to offer. It's like you take everything that could be good about watching somebody that inspires you and you immediately trash it. It doesn't get you anywhere. All that it does is kind of make you feel bad about who you are, and it sort of traps you in this hole of feeling inadequate, feeling incapable, and feeling lesser than, which completely halts your progress altogether. And so I think another helpful idea when it actually comes to practically incorporating this type of thinking when you're dancing is to practice doing things in a way that you would do them and not in a way that you think you should be doing them. Like we've been saying, there's a small difference between being inspired by someone's approach to dance, their work ethic when it comes to dance, and their individuality when it comes to their practice of dance. There's a difference between that and seeing someone who's great and immediately beating yourself up for not being them or not being who they are. Becoming comfortable with who you are as a dancer and who you were made to be and learning to cultivate your own original voice is potentially one of the most valuable lessons that any dancer could learn. We all have to recognize that we're on our own paths and our own journeys, and if we try to take the journey of somebody else, we're ultimately going to get lost. Take the things that you see in other people that you like as inspiration to develop your own personal genius and your own individuality. Focus on the things that make you who you are, not on the things that make them who they are. And then the third and final thing that I feel could really be holding you back as a dancer is your desire for perfection is paralyzing your progress. I think another way that you could put this is your desire to perform at a certain level is paralyzing your progress. Now, before we get into that, let me tell you what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that a desire to perform well or to pursue excellence within your craft is holding you back. That's not what I'm saying at all. We should pursue excellence. We should pursue being good at what we do, but there's a difference between creating unrealistic standards for yourself and then judging your ability to do what you love by your failure to meet those standards as reason for why you are bad at what you love to do, or reason for why you are bad at your specific craft. The truth is, perfection does not exist, except for God. Our pursuit of perfection within our craft often leads to stagnation and the inability to take massive action. In the pursuit of wanting to perform with perfection, or wanting to have a perfect plan, or to have all the pieces in order before we start, we ultimately create excuses and blockages for ourselves that prevent us from being able to move forward in any way at all. For me, this can lead to things like not allowing yourself to be seen, not allowing yourself to be as good as you know you are or to perform as well as you know you could, not feeling like you have anything to offer or any helpful input to give, and feeling like the journey that you've been on has not been worth anything. Holding yourself back from doing or trying new things until they're absolutely perfect or until the absolute perfect scenario rolls around will always have the exact opposite effect that you're hoping it will. I was just talking about this yesterday with my uncle. There's never going to be a perfect moment to do the things that you want to do. And when we're talking specifically about our relationship with the way that we perform as dancers, holding myself back in specific moments where I don't feel that I am operating or performing at the level that I wish I was, not only leads to me performing worse, but also leads to me being unable to make progress to get to where I hypothetically want to be in my performance or in my execution of, I don't know, a combo or freestyle, whatever the case is. As simple as it sounds, I think the value in simply giving ourselves just a little bit of grace and allowing ourselves to say, okay, me allowing myself to be seen or me seeing as what I have to offer in this moment as valid does not mean that I am in any way diminishing my pursuit of excellence or settling for a lesser form of where I want to be ultimately. This moment is simply part of the process and part of the journey that I need to take to get to where I want to be. And I have to go through it, be all right with the possibility of being very uncomfortable. And after doing so, I'll realize that I am actually one step closer to where I want to be, as opposed to being stuck in one specific spot, just wishing that I could perform like I want to eventually. That's why you could have two people who are exactly the same and who have the same goals, but only one of them who reaches them, and that one being the one who's willing to take action when they're unsure and when they're uncomfortable. This is one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn over the course of the last few years, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years of my life. And that was our third and final issue that I really think could be holding you back as a dancer. Like I said at the beginning, nothing within this video is meant to work as an accusation. These are observations that I've made within myself, and also observations that I've made in talking with other people who are further along than I am and who speak from a place of wanting to warn me and younger dancers to not fall into thinking patterns like this. And maybe after watching this video, you'll realize that there's some work that you need to do within yourself, whether that's from adjusting a certain aspect of your practice, maybe incorporating some new ideas into the way that you train, or just in your mental state and in your relationship with yourself. I think the most helpful thing that you can realize is that you can only do what you can do today. So maybe that means just doing one thing different. Maybe that means taking a little bit of extra time to train or to rehearse the basics of the dance drama that you like the most. Think about the step that you can take today. Think about doing the next right thing, not about doing the next 100 right things. Just think about what you can do today. Think about the habits and the practices that you can incorporate into your day today that are going to help you start moving with greater progress and with less inhibition. If you focus on simply taking the step that's in front of you, you'll look back after taking 500 of those steps and realize that that was the only way that you could have ever gotten to where you are now. There was no way around it. There was no way over it or under it. There was no way to skip it. You simply had to take one step at a time. As cheesy as that may sound, it really is the truth. So that's pretty much going to do it for today's video, you guys. I want to thank you so much for your time. Before I go, I just want to let you guys know about some exciting stuff that's going on for the Shed. First thing I want to say is we've got a Patreon. I'm super excited about this new way to connect with you guys and to build relationship and to help you guys in your dance journey and to provide any knowledge that I have that will serve you guys in any way. We're still figuring stuff out with the Patreon, but I would love it if you guys would just go and check it out. We're gonna have a free tier that anybody can access on Patreon without paying a dime. And over the course of 2025, we're going to have exclusive content that comes out that anybody can access for free on the Patreon that won't be here on the YouTube channel, as well as exclusive perks that'll come for anybody who decides that they want to be a monthly donor and just contribute to this channel and what we're doing over here. Anybody who decides to do that, you truly mean the world to me. And as more things become available, I will be sure to let you guys know. Also, if you have a moment, I would love y'all's input on something. I've gotten lots of comments and inquiry from people who are just looking to dive deeper into some of these concepts that we talk about on the channel. And even though I love to be as detailed as I possibly can, there really is only so much that we can cover in a little YouTube video. And so I'd like to announce that in 2025, I will be releasing a free hip hop fundamentals video course. I'm super excited to share this with you guys and to share it with you for free. This is a tool that I feel would have been super helpful for me as a young dancer, and I can't wait to see how it'll help kids like me who love hip hop. That being said, as I'm creating this course, I would love to hear from you guys. What are things that would be helpful for you personally to be covered in a hip hop fundamentals course? What do you want to know about hip hop and how to be better at it? What type of information do you feel like you're missing and is in turn holding you back from progressing and being where you want to be as a dancer? How can I provide that information most effectively for you? I would love to hear anything that you guys have to say. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts. What do you want to see in this video course? Like I said, it's going to be completely free, at least for a period of time, but it will be finished soon. So don't hesitate to comment down below, reach out to me on Instagram, check out the Patreon and message me on there, and just share with me, what do you want to see from this course? What information will be the most helpful for you, and what pieces do you feel that you are missing that I can provide or in some way help you with? I want to thank you guys so much for sharing and for commenting and for your time in watching this video. I'm super excited for everything that's coming in 2025, and I'm just grateful for the year that I've had with you guys and for all the support that you've lended me. It truly means the world. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace out.